All right, good morning. We learned today not only Li'ilu Nishmat Avigdor Chai Avram ben Meretzivi Rachel Leah, but also because today is Avram's second in the Loazi calendar, second yard site. When Rhonda mentioned to me that I'll get to the page number in a minute. When Rhonda mentioned to me that today was the second English yard site, besides saying like, oh my gosh, it's already been 2 years. I went straight to the book and went to look and see, because I had forgotten, it's been a few weeks now, where was the next chapter we're going to start, and how Hashem runs the world, how it is so appropriate. The topic we're going to deal with today and probably next couple of weeks is anava, or humility. And I'll explain toch today when we're going through the text of why that is. Obviously, it's not obvious. It is so appropriate, a topic for today. In the book, the small version, it's on page 134, but no matter what book you have, it's the beginning of chapter 22. When we start a chapter, it's easy for me to tell you where it is if you have 10 different printings. Okay. There is a famous, it's apocryphal, whether it's true or not, it seems to have made it into the annals of Israel history. Golda Meir, Aleh Shalom, is supposed to have said, and it's not sure to whom she said it. More than likely it was Moshe Dayan. It's still not clear. It was the following statement. I have it on my phone so I don't misquote it. As soon as my phone comes to life, she said as follows. Don't be so humble. You are not that great. It's a famous quote. Again, Moshe Dayan was probably the recipient of the statement. It may have been a visiting diplomat. It may have been someone in her cabinet. It's not completely clear for exactly whom she said it to. We're going to talk today about the topic of anava, which is humility, which is the polar opposite of ga'ava, of pride. Not being proud, but pride, like you're full of yourself. The extreme of that is narcissism, which we're not going to talk about unless you want to. Unfortunately, it's something I'm well versed in, having dealt with a few in my life, because I'm so good at it. What else? Couldn't have. It's just too easy. Sorry. And now I have told the following story in the past. I know. I just don't know if I told it here. There was a guy in our shul, Chicago, and he said it to me with complete sincerity. He said the following: Anava is what I strive for. And if I could just be a little bit more of an anav, I would be the best anav out there. And he was saying it sincerely. I said, do you realize what you just said? Yeah, I do. I want to be the best anav, the most humble of all people. That's me. So first of all, you ever hear of Moses? Right. So before we even start the parak, I want to get into a little bit of a description or translation, understanding. What does it mean to be an anav? Vayish Moshe anav mikol adam. Moshe Rabbeinu is the most humble of all people. Now, some people understand that pasuk to mean as follows: Moshe would go into his tent at night. Tzipporah be waiting for him. No, you told me you're going to be here an hour ago. Oh, come on, Tzipporah, listen. You know, there's all kinds of stuff. You know these Jews. Come on. But he would sit down on the edge of his bed and go, oh, I'm nothing. I never was anything. I'm such a disappointment to my parents. I'm nobody. Is that what it means to be an anav? No, of course not. So what does it mean to be an anav? Moshe Rabbeinu knew full well his capacity for what he could do, what he couldn't do. He understood that he was the Hashem's, as it were, right-hand man to take the Bnei Yisrael Mitzrayim, the splitting the Yam Suf, taking him through the desert, and putting up with millions of complainers every day. Imagine him working for 1 million bosses. And he knew he had the ability to deal with it. But he also understood something very important, that it was not he who was in charge. It was Hashem who gave him the gifts with which he did his actions. When a person is a concert pianist, a cellist, a violinist, whatever it might be, a person who memorizes shas, when a person is the best in their field of law, medicine, accounting, teaching, whatever it might be. They have their 13 postdocs. That's phenomenal. It's great. It's awesome. But we're going to see this is what you were created for. You were given talent by Hashem. Now, the sad thing is that we find people in life who do have tremendous talent, but never put it to use. There are many, many people who have latent talents. And it's not sometimes until later in life that they come out. And the reason is because people don't have the self-confidence. Could be other possibilities. I have mentioned already 25 times here, and I want to learn to play the violin one day and really well. I don't know. Maybe I have it in me. Maybe I don't. Did I know I was a writer? I didn't know I was a writer, and I didn't know anything about PUT, and then I'm writing books on PUT, and big deal, okay? Because it means it's in there. It's in there. I just finally started to bring it out. So let's take a look at the text and see a little bit about what this is about. But there is a line that is said. Now, I am not endorsing. I'm not saying he's good. He's bad. I think he passed away actually. Rush Limbaugh. You've heard of Rush Limbaugh? Okay. Conservative talk host. He would start every one of his broadcasts with a line that I absolutely loved. This Rush Limbaugh with talent on loan from God. I love that line. It's beautiful. It's the recognition that whatever he's able to accomplish, and he actually went blind late in life, and still continued his broadcast. That everything was on loan from Hashem. Okay, let's get into the understanding of what is anava. We've already spoken about the topic of haughtiness. And we understand from that if haughtiness is terrible, then we understand also that the opposite, which is anava, humility, is a good thing. There's an expression in Hebrew, michlal lav atashomea hen. Hen is Aramaic for yes. Lav is Aramaic for no. So michlal lav atashomea hen. So for example, if I say to somebody, how's your dad? And they say, well, my mom's great. You already understand something's not 100% with the father. Now, I didn't just pick that example. It's actually in the Gemara. About they didn't want to say that so-and-so passed away. They asked about that person. They said the other person was okay, and they understood toch kedei. No, we know it's no good. It's a great midah. It's a great character trait. But now he has to go more into depth. Hanava. So also we'll also understand more about anava, and conversely we'll know more about ga'ava or pride / haughtiness. The general idea is that anava means a person does not, his expression is really a Yiddish expression moved into English. He doesn't hold from himself, doesn't make himself feel like he's so all important for any reason. And that's exactly the opposite of ga'ava. What's the opposite? What is the opposite? He thinks of himself, he's so great about nothing. It's not that he's proud. He's showing off about how smart he is and how good he is at something. He's saying, if imagine I walk here and say, by the way, I hate to tell you, I am the best violinist on earth. Okay? Yitzchak Perlman learned everything he knows from me, right? And I don't even know how to hold the bow. I don't know how to hold the violin. There's nothing to be proud of and be ga'ava. The results, the things that come as a result of this anava, will be the exact opposite results that happen as a result of pride. When we really are medakdek, we're careful, we look into this. He's going to tell us the rest of this chapter is going to deal with two topics or two perspectives. One is anava in your mind, how you think in your mind about yourself, and the other is in your actions. He's going to say we will not get, I know we won't get today probably to ma'aseh. We're going to deal today with machashava, thought. The first step is, for a person who really wants to make sure that they're an anav, is you have to tell yourself that in your mind. You have to feel it inside. And then after that, you can act in a way of a person who's an anav. What does that mean? What does it mean to act like an anav? We'll see. We'll see what that means. Because if he's not internally thinking of himself as an anav, Doesn't mean he thinks of himself. He means he acts in his mind. He's a humble person. But he wants to act outwardly like someone humble. He's only going to be a fake anav, as he's mentioned before. We read one more line, and I'll give you an example. They're these two-faced people. They're the they say one thing, really internally thinking something else. And now, before he gets an explanation, let me give you what he means. What does it mean to be externally acting like an anav, but internally he's not? Someone comes over to an individual, says, "You know that shiur you gave last week, unbelievable." "Oh, no, please, it was nothing. I threw together a couple sources." The inside is going, "Look at me, look at that, they're all over me." Okay, externally, I'm humble, anav, but he doesn't think that way. That's why he has to start up here, which, by the way, also ties into Tanya, which we've been dealing with, the exact topic of the mind. Now he's going to explain these two main subjects, two paths. One he's going to start with is machashava. Anava b'machashava. He she'itbonen adam v'itamet etzlo asher ein atila. First step, you have to realize, you have to verify to yourself and truly believe that you don't deserve the praise or the honor. Why? Wait a minute. If I do something nice and someone says, "Good job," what's wrong with that? We're not talking about that. We'll see. It's not. That's why you cringed, and you're right? It's almost like saying, if I do something nice and you don't say, "Wow, that was nice," or "Thank you," it's like, what's wrong with her? I just helped her with something. Why don't you say thank you? Okay, it's not that. We'll see. Even worse, to think that you're greater than other people. Now, this is a very, very, very big character flaw in many people. It goes hand in hand with being judgmental. Because when you're judgmental, you're saying, "I know your life. I know what you're going through. I've experienced exactly what you've experienced from day one, and therefore I have the right to say that you are X, Y, and Z. I don't have to say it. I just think it. You always come to a meeting, 40 minutes late. Oh, guys, he can't get his life together. Bum." Not knowing that because he's late, because he's taking care of his mother who's sick. But I didn't know that, right? So we cannot judge. Can't be what's called in Hebrew shiputi, the word lishpot, to judge. And on top of that, we can't say, "I'm better." What makes me better than you? You know what we all have? The neshama. We all have the same neshama. By the way, it is the same neshama. It's all the same source. So, well, my neshama is better than your neshama? No. My neshama is better than yours. My neshama could beat up your neshama anytime, right? Shtuyot. V'zeh, mipnei shema shechaser mimenu b'achreach, v'gam mipnei ma shekvar yesh biado. Why do we not want to get to that position where we think we're God's gift to humanity? Number one, everyone has faults. Everyone's lacking something. And even that which you have achieved, it could be better. It could be more. Can you tell me, take someone like a Moshe Feinstein, and I choose him for a reason. There has not been another person like him since. There's also never been another person like him since with the same humility and that was accepted throughout Am Yisrael. We've had Gedolei Yisrael since, for sure. I remember thinking when he died, we're never going to have someone like him again. Mashiach. We're never going to, and honestly, we've had great people to this very day, some amazing, great Gedolim, but knowing that the whole world says that's the Posek Hadar, and how they have mashmitzed his name sometime in certain things over the years is really very difficult for me to accept. But in any case, take Rav Moshe Feinstein. And again, he knew who he was. He knew what he accomplished. Yeah, he was once asked, how did he become such a prolific author and writer? He would write all these tshuvas and all. He says, someone asked me a question, so I answered. More people asked me questions, so I answered. That was his perspective. But if you were to ask him now, if you were alive, tell me, Rav Moshe, honestly, do you think you could still accomplish more? Of course, there's always more to accomplish, right? There's a story, I'm not going to tell it again, but Rav Reisman told that. It's the name of the book, and I've told this story before. It's never too late, it's never too little, and it's never enough. So this whole idea that we think, wow, again, I go back to this statement that drives me nuts. I hear from people 19, 20 years old, and even later. I did my year in seminary. I did my year in yeshiva. Whoa, you're really good. Yeah, but you're 47 years old now. When's the last time you opened a sefer? Well, I did my year. I'm in university now. I have a job. What are you here for? Sorry. I am. And she thinks it's water. That's cute. It is. It's a double. The fact that a person missing is lacking things in their life that they haven't done, accomplished, or done, obviously. It's impossible for any person, no matter what level they're at in their lives, that he's perfect and doesn't have any faults, or just from his nature, either from the side from his nature, or something familiar, family related, or things that happened in life, or certain things he did. Why? There's a pasuk in Tilim. There's no such thing as someone who's only perfect, does good, and never sins. Why does the Torah tell us that Sarah Imenu was abusive to Hagar? Why does the Torah tell us that Miriam spoke Lashon Hara? Why isn't that Lashon Hara? Why does the Torah tell us that Moshe did this and that Avram and Yitzchak and Yaakov did this? Asa? Why? They were human beings. We don't believe in deifying anybody, unlike other religions. They're human beings with faults. Yes, they're as close to perfect as you could be, but they were still human beings, even Moshe Rabbeinu. And he'd be the first to tell you. So it says, in any, there's a person may have a perfect family life and never have any problems in the family, but maybe they'll mess up in this other area, or maybe they did something like this wrong, or they used their intellect or something the wrong way. You bring a note next time. Principle. We have a note here. We're early on in chapter 22. Okay. All these blemishes, so to speak, in a person, all these things that we've done wrong, don't leave room for a person to lord over other people and say, look how good I am. Imagine, I'll use males. Imagine there is a fashion show, okay, for suits, and there's a runway. I don't know if they do that for men. They do? Okay. Absolutely. Okay, good. I don't know. I've only been to the fashion show for women, just joking. And the guy comes out in an amazing $5,000 suit, walks around. Yeah. Can you do me a favor, Judy? Can you buy me one? It's nothing. I need one suit. That's all I need. One. I have a couple. I actually have a bunch. Thank you. As long as you're paying. Or SNH green stamps. You did? $5,000 was not a lot of money for a suit. I don't know. I paid $250 was my max. My bar mitzvah suit probably cost $30. At what was it called? What was the name of the store on Vaughn? Whatever that short sleeve. I'll remember it. Everyone, Eric. No, that was the good one. It'll come to it. No, it was too expensive. You'll think about it. Okay. Anyways, so the guy's walking down. First guy comes out in this beautiful suit, $5,000 gorgeous suit. Next guy walks in, suit, tie, shoes, absolute perfection. Next guy comes in and and his shirt is absolutely, it's crisp and white. The next guy comes in and he's got the suit, he's got a big stain on his shirt, right? And his hair, I'll use this, is hanging like that, right? I have a picture of my first hour's wedding with my hair like under the chuppah. So what do you see? You don't see this, you don't see the suit, you see the stain. When they teach, and I actually had a program just before Corona hit, I had a syllabus to teach public speaking course. And one of the things you do before you speak publicly, you should look at your teeth, look at your face, look at your clothes. Your zipper, right? You got to make sure that people, because they get distracted. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is, right? If I walked in here and I had this big blotch of stain over here, that's what you'd be looking at. Probably better off anyways, but that's what you'd be looking at. You would be focusing on what I'm trying to say, like change his shirt, right? That's what the person. So I walk in here. I had this $23,000 suit. perfect shirt, everything. And the suit, the shirt, because I just finished eating on Shabbat, obviously it's all going to be dirty. So I have a big stain from cholent on my shirt. Okay. And I say, look at this. Look at his suit. Look at me. Excuse me, you got this big blotch on, right? That's what he's saying. We have faults. We're not perfect. Even if he has a lot of good qualities, and we all do. We can be overshadowed. These good qualities can be overshadowed. It doesn't mean that a person's sins make him a bad person. It doesn't mean that you should feel bad about it. It's a really bad thing, bad approach. Again, that's going to be in Tanya in the middle of the book. But it does mean that you have to take into consideration that you do have skeletons in your closet in your past. Or as one of my friends once said, she has a whole graveyard. Yeah, so that's pretty sad. Now, let me ask you a question before we go on. And don't look ahead. That means you're all going to look ahead. What area do you think would cause a person mostly to be full of themselves? In other words, what the best doctor in the world? We're talking in general terms now. What would be something a person would get like all full of themselves? A surgeon. Okay, that's very specific. I'm looking for broad. Okay, but a surgeon, and you're actually all going to say, by the way, without realizing, is going to have a mechana mishutaf, which means a common denominator. You're going to see surgeon. What else might make a person be a politician? Excellent learning. His learning. Okay. Maybe. Anything else? Yes. A beauty contestant. Okay, a physical, right? So all of these, except for the beauty contestant, have a common denominator. Knowledge. Her knowledge of herself, or her ability to make herself up and look beautiful. Okay, got it. Right. I want to solve world peace, right? You like that? I saw plenty of those. Knowledge. What does that mean? What do I mean by that? Let's go back to the surgeon. Why would a surgeon, and in my opinion, rightfully so to a degree, be able to think like he's really a little bit better than some people? Years and years of discipline and study and action and saving lives and taking a person, right, versus the person who's mending a fence. Now, both are important. Both have a tafkid, but this guy might say, look at it, my hands are insured for $50 million because what I can do, right? Let's take a look what he says. Knowledge, a person's knowledge, very often can bring a person to feel that they're better than somebody else, and bring them to a sense of pride and lack of humility. It's not something you can take from me, right? If I have a lot of money, I can lose it. You can steal it from me. You could take it from me. I can lose it, whatever it might be. If I have a nice car, could get, God forbid, in an accident, could get stolen, it could drop dead, whatever it could be. My sechel, all things considered, God forbid, and I say, all things considered, Bezrat Hashem, we should all live and be well, mentally, healthy, everything. It's not something you can take from me. It may diminish over time, and most times it will, but God forbid, it shouldn't be too bad. But it's mine. It's completely unique to me. By the way, of all the things in the body, the human body, that scientists know about, to this day, the one that still mostly don't know is the brain. My understanding is that the medical community that I'm involved in, the medical community knows, they say, about 10% of the brain. They can understand the workings. I said before, I said again, I don't understand how someone can be in the medical world and not believe in God. It boggles the mind. It just does. There's no such thing as a person who's so smart he never makes a mistake, or will never need to take consideration from somebody else and to help him to understand something, maybe to give an eitzah. And even sometimes from his own students, and this one I can attest to. I cannot tell you how many times, because of students, I have learned so much. It says, and from my students, I've learned more than anybody else for 2 or 3 reasons. Number one, if you don't teach, doesn't mean you're not necessarily getting stimulated by outside questions. When you do teach, you also have to prepare. I don't just walk in and start teaching. I have to prepare. Even if I've taught Mesilat Yesharim about 10, 12 times, whatever it might be, doesn't mean anything, right? I have notes all up the wazoo here. Great. But I have to prepare. I have to go over it. And yet someone will ask a question, and it happened to me this morning. I was walking my granddaughters to Ghana, each one in a hand. Nice, I love it. And my younger one, Ella, 3.5, said to me something to the effect of, like, not in those words, like, what are you doing today? So I said, well, I'm going to go teach. And then she said, you teach? I said, yes. She says, I teach in school. I teach in somebody's house. I teach on the computer. Why? I said, why what, Ella? Why do you teach? I said, Ella, that is a great question. How about I come over and we'll talk about it later? It's a great question. I don't have to teach. I can sit and learn more, right? Just for myself. Why do I teach? So I said, I love it. I love teaching. I've always loved teaching. There are people, sadly, who love to teach because they like to show how much they know, which is really a sad character trait. I've seen it. It's the people who get up and they want to impress their audience. And they quote 3,700 Mikorot or sources, and it's over the audience's head. And it's like, come on, really? That's what we have to sit and listen to? Or they insult the audience, right? And just the opposite, they talk down to them. It's like, I know so much more than you, but let me explain this to you, you underlings. Right. But she asked me, why? I said, no one's ever asked me that. Honestly, no one's ever asked me that. And a 3.5-year-old child, my student, so to speak. But I've had students I'll sit outside and talk with, or in school or in their house, and they'll ask me questions. Brings me to Avram. I learned so much from him. I learned so much from Abraham, from what he asked, how he acted, what he did, and what he accomplished. And why do I say, I'm not going to go on right now about Abraham, I want to point it out now, though, that why do I say that this chapter is so matim to be on a day where we're commemorating Abraham's memory? You might think that a person in his situation had no reason to be full of himself. But unfortunately, he spent a chunk of his life, a good chunk, in the hospital or at home, pretty much segregated from most community. But what did he accomplish? If you were to sit with him, as I did, thank God, many, many hours, and you're talking and learning and studying something, his knowledge, his ability to ask, his insightful comments and all, it's as if he'd been in a regular school day in and day out, had a normal life, quote unquote, with a regular community and all, not one who was taught by his mom for a lot and by his dad for a lot and sitting in a home and in a hospital and all that. He had every reason to be, look at me, look at still what he's able to accomplish. And never heard that from him once. Never. He saw himself as a regular kid. And that's an amazing, amazing quality. And that's why I also say I learned a lot from him. And it was an unbelievable zechut to learn with him. I'll come back to that. Let me come back. Let me go a little bit further. If that's the case, how can a person be feeling this sense of, I am so fantastic because of my knowledge? People ask me, thank God, lots of questions. I don't mean just like, what page are we on? Which is also fine. Please rise to page 191. Is 191 in the Hertz, in the Birnbaum Sitters, in Mariv. Yeah. I don't know why I remember that. But I never said in tone. No. Because I'm smarter than everybody else. So why would I? They wouldn't even know the word. Such a no. I love it. I forgot what I was even saying. Wait, hold on. What was I saying? People ask me a lot of questions. They're more often than not. It happens many times. I'd say at least 10% of the time is a question that I do not feel qualified to answer. It's not that I don't know. Sometimes it is. I have no idea. Got a great question from somebody the other day. I said, okay, it's a great question. Here's what I do know. The rest I really don't, but I know who you should ask. So I sent her somewhere else. And there are times that I'll call, I have someone I call to discuss the question that comes up, even if I have an answer, because I just want to verify that I'm right, because I'm not always right. Obviously not. It's impossible to always be right. I answer, let's make up a number. Let's say I answer 1,000 questions a year. We talk about somebody like Rav Moshe Zatzal, Rav Aviner, because Rav Shlomo Aviner, literally tens of thousands of questions a year. Okay, so answer 1,000. Big deal. So you can't be right 1,000 times. I can't know the answer to 1,000 questions unless it's like what's for supper. But even then, I don't. I have no idea. The answer usually is food. I do. I ask her, she says food. So I call. First I'll look up. I'll check it out. I'll look into Shulchan Aruch, whatever it might be. And then if I still, and sometimes when I come to the conclusion that the answer that the person's going to get is something they really can't handle. I had a situation a few years ago where the night before the wedding, how did it go? The timing of the woman having to go to the mikvah would such be that she'd forgotten to do the hefsek Torah in time, so it wouldn't be going to the mikvah the day after the wedding, and she would have to do the hefsek Torah the next day. Bottom line was there any heter for her relying on something on X to allow to go to the mikvah right before the wedding instead of waiting to the day after? And I was looking for everything I could. I knew she couldn't. I knew there was nothing to do. So I called this person I talk to quite often. He says, yeah, heard this one before too, many times. I tried, there's nothing. And that's what the answer was, unfortunately. And sometimes, by the way, there's a really great rule of thumb. Unfortunately, many people feel when in doubt, do without, which is not good. Because you say, it's probably no good. It's probably usher, it's probably trave, it's probably not okay to do, whatever. It costs nothing to ask a question. Ask. I've had people ask me a question. They say, really? I can? Or it's okay? Yeah. I mean, not always is the answer no, unless you live in certain communities where it's always no. And it's always l'chumra. Halacha, I just had this discussion with somebody last week, actually during Chag. Halacha is rarely black and white. I mean, certain things are. You can't write on Shabbat. That's actually not black and white, because there are times you can. Actually, I had an unbelievable question come to me years ago. I talk about it here about having to write on Chag for therapy. I talk about it. So I had to do with the therapeutic thing. This person was going through a very traumatic time, and part of the therapy was literally every day write certain thing down and then cross it out, like saying like I'm a terrible person, and crossing out. So you needed to emote and it was for the mental health and all. And I actually, for some of you don't, boy, am I really digressing now. Some of you may have heard of Rabbi Dr. Yoni Rosenzweig, a gadol. He's a young guy. I don't know if he's 40, an absolute gadol, who both in halacha and everything. He wrote a book, a sefer, in conjunction with a doctor. It's all about mental health halacha questions. I bought it right away. I went cover to cover. It doesn't mean I remember everything, but just to see all the topics. It discusses almost anything you can imagine with the mental health issues and halacha. And so I actually consulted with someone who then talked to him, and there was a heter to do it, and how they did it with the shinu, okay, whatever. But ask the average rabbi, can you write on Chag for mental health? He'll be fine. Let him live. No, you have to listen. You have to really hear the question, understand the person you're talking to. So coming back now, undigress one step. So rarely is halacha black and white. When you look at halacha as dogmatic, and this is always the way it is, there's absolutely no change. You can't move one iota. You really paint yourself into a very narrow, teeny little spot. And when you do that, you also cause yourself mental health issues. Because if a person already is predisposed to being OCD or anything else, that just magnifies. He talks about, in the book, for example, a person who's OCD, about a woman, about doing bedikot, and talks about what about bedikat chametz and someone who's OCD. It's like amazing stuff that I never would have thought about until I started reading the book. It's great. Yeah, there's some guy still checking right now for chametz, right? Even as we speak, from 2 years ago, right? The candle burned down 20. He used a 7-day candle. So what we have to understand is, coming back to the topic of knowledge, we were given, every one of us, a gift of a brain. And that brain, everyone has X amount of capacity. Let's see what he says about that. The person who has a brain, in other words, they're not, God forbid, mentally incapacitated. The person has a normal brain. And even if they have achieved unbelievable things, they know Shulchan Aruch by heart, they know Shas by heart, they know Kol Torah Kula by heart. When he really looks into it, he'll see there's really no place for that person to feel a sense of haughtiness. He can be proud of his accomplishments, but not be filled with pride/haughtiness. I'm proud of what I've done in life so far. I know I have tremendous amount to accomplish still, I hope, but I'm proud of what I've been able to do until now. I'd be a fool to say I'm not. Would I do things differently and all? I'm thrilled that I started this new Tefillah class again. It's my third time I'm doing it. And what I'm teaching and how I'm teaching is 180-degree difference than I did the last 2 times. Completely different. Because we're always growing, I hope. A person who's got intellect and knows more than other people. He's only doing what he is naturally inclined to do, which is to know more, that his brain has a greater capacity. When you ever look at a bird, go, whoa, that bird really flies. No, that's what it's meant to do. It's got wings. That's its nature. Imagine you see an ox with a yoke on it. I don't mean an egg. Y-O-K-E. Right? Pulling a cart or threshing thing, and it's plowing the earth. Go, wow, that's one good ox. You can look at how good a job he's doing. That's what he's supposed to do. That's its nature. That's the way it's meant to be. So too, someone who is intelligent. That's what his nature brings him to that point. Now, what does this mean? Number one, it sounds like that. Let's use numbers because it's easy to quantify, especially since we have a couple of accountants. It's numbers are, by the way, tax deadline passed. Just talking. Okay. Let's say the maximum amount a person can know. Wait, I have extensions here. Let's say the maximum amount a person can know is 100, whatever 100 is. That's the top, and it's impossible to be 100. So it sounds like he's telling us that a person is naturally inclined when they're born to be a 70, an 82, a 19, a 24, that they have a limit, that's what their natural, it says it's teva, it says nature. It's not what it means. It's not what it means. It means that a person's nature is that they maybe want to know more, they try to learn more, that's who they are, as opposed to like, I don't care. Like, I'll ask somebody if I need to know something, right? I have found in my own life, and I think of others, when I talk to them, that the more curious, and I'm a very curious person. I always want to know what's going on. Why is that ambulance going there? Why is the cop doing this? What's the urgency? What's happening? The more curious a person is in life about things, I think it also causes their intellect to grow, because it means they want to know. I'm not talking about the studio, but what's happening, why the ambulance go by, but like, I want to know, I'm not talking about myself now, but say, I want to know how is bread made? How is a car manufactured? How do they get to the moon with only a 386 computer, right? How did they do that? Okay, and I want to know laws of physics. I don't know, because I want to break those laws, right? So we're talking about that their nature is that they are more intellectual than their brain. No, it's not true. Most people have a very large capacity of learning, just don't use it. I lost the place. I should have done. Okay. So to a chacham, it says nature brings him to that point. Let's say you're an 87 in your level of knowledge, and I'm a 14. That even though I don't have the same level of knowledge as you, maybe if I did have that ability also, The guy I'd be like you, right? There are many people, young people. I saw a video when was it Rav Yashiv or no, if it was Rav Yashiv's Zatzal or it was Rav Kanievsky's Zatzal, one or the other. They had a student come to him. I think it was 14. He was testing him on Mishnayot. Sorry, Mishnayos. Never would have tested him on Mishnayot. Testing Mishnayos, and he wouldn't ask him like, okay, what's the third chapter in Brachot start with? He'd say, where in all of Shas Mishnayot does it talk about Chanukah? Without batting an eyelash, the kid goes, it's in Masachet, this parak Mishnah, this 3 times it mentions it, and that was the question, by the way. Where's Chanukah mentioned in the Mishnah, right? So, like, I would love to have that kind of memory. I would love it. Could I? Probably. How? I have to spend an awful lot of time learning Mishnah. A tremendous amount of time. It wouldn't come easy. I would love to be able to do that. I'd love to know everything. If I could remember every single, no, it's not true. I don't want it. Definitely not. I would like to be able to remember everything I learned from books or from speeches or from, I don't remember everything I've experienced in life. I'm sure for everybody. That's why Hashem gave us a tremendous gift of forgetfulness. Yes, thank God. Thank God. Because it says the opposite by Hashem. We say that on Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. There is no concept before God of shichachah, or forgetfulness. But if I had, no, I keep talking about the violin, okay? So maybe I could be better than Yitzchak Perlman. Maybe. I don't know. But if I tried, I have to try to do it. I have to have a good teacher. I have to really work at it. I have to practice daily for years to even get to his toenails, right? So just the fact that you know so much more, that the surgeon knows that, maybe if I had put my life into medicine and becoming a surgeon and taking 20 years of my life to get to that point, I could be just as good, if not better. So the fact that I have knowledge, so what? It's not so what. It doesn't mean like it's a nothing, but it means like, why would that be a source for me to say like, look how much I know? There's no reason whatsoever for a person like that to feel a sense of haughtiness. But if he has a tremendous amount of knowledge, you got knowledge, spread the wealth. Each. Doesn't mean it has to be official in a classroom or in a shiur like this. Educate other people. When someone doesn't know something properly, help. Discuss. Talk. Don't be silent, especially if someone asks you, how do you do something? What do you do? I'm not talking just halacha. In life. This also has to do with life, right? Someone can come to you for an eitzad, come for an idea, a suggestion for, I don't know how to deal with a certain situation. What do you think I should do, right? It's not always halacha based. It could be psychological, it could be emotional, and yet many, many factors have to be taken into account. Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai, one of my heroes of Jewish history, if you learn a lot of Torah, don't look at it as like, whoa, wow, I'm good. You were created to learn Torah. If you're rich or he's rich, be happy that you have the riches. And you have a responsibility. Money comes with a tremendous responsibility the more you have. A person who has a little bit of money, they have to give a little bit of tzedakah. I have someone in my extended family, no names, who became a multi-millionaire, not overnight, but because his father's business was bought out for more than $500 million. What does he do? He spends his week doing 2 things. And he's not a big Talmud Chacham, regular guy. He goes every day to different shiurim, and one day a week, he has to sits in front of an Excel spreadsheet, divvying out the weekly money that gets put into the account that he has, drawn into his tzedakah account, and he parcels it out once a week, and he spends the day doing that. That's how much money he's got, right? It's a tremendous responsibility, that money. And is he supposed to say, look at the hundreds of millions I got, look at me? He does not. Unfortunately, there are plenty of people who do, and they need their names up in lights and everything else. Very nice. I'll give you his email address. Yeah. It's the Zev Chandela Foundation. You can make out the checks now. Make sure they clear, please, before you leave the building. Yes. Yeah, bearer. Yeah, that's right. Yes. That's what it says in Pirkei Avot. The more you have, the more you worry. That's true. Correct. You're right. We waste a lot of time. The more stuff we have. Correct. Right. And also, it becomes a problem for you, not for Pastor Shalom, but for an individual, and for those to whom the money and stuff will go to. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Money is a very, very difficult test. So definitely, that's why we said this before. Why Moshe Rabbeinu is told by Hashem, he says that everyone has to bring a machatita shekel, and says zeyitnu. Rashi says Hashem showed him a coin of fire in the sky, saying this is what you give. Why a coin of fire? Just say coin. So it's just like fire is good and bad. It can burn a building down and it can cook. Money is good and bad also. Pretty much everything in life is like that. Almost everything. Okay, we're going to stop here. I just want to finish with one comment. Going back to Avraham, Zichrono Livracha. Rhonda and I and Martin have spoken about this a few times, and I think it's self-evident that while Avram left way too early, many, many years too early, the results of his no longer being with us are felt every single day in ways of Torah, Masim Tovim, Chesed. Just think about all the Torah that's been learned as a result. The Tehillim. I'm not talking about when he was sick. Afterwards, the Tehillim and the Shiurim and the marathons and the money that's raised and given to tzedakah, and the money goes to Schneider and the ambulance cycle. It is mind-boggling. And that's all in his chut. All in his chut. But the apple didn't fall far from the tree. Really, the apple didn't fall far from the tree, because I know both of you. I know both your families, and it's pretty obvious where it came from. But and I don't say this to be condescending. I mean, that's not the right word. To be pandering. That I really do mean. He had every reason to feel a sense of, wow, I am really better than everybody. Because in spite of what I'm going through, I still was able to accomplish that. That wasn't who he was. So it's nice to learn. I said this at the Levaya. It's nice to learn from a book, Mesilat Yesharim, where you can just look at people, certain people, really learn a heck of a lot of what to do in life. Have a good day. Neshama should have an aliyah.